So we all have our opinions on Linux distributions. We might think there are too many, we might think it's good to have a good selection to fill every niche. But the real question we should be asking is probably, is that Linux distribution model even working? So today I'm going to give you my thoughts and opinions on this thing. Like, is this Linux distro model where distro packages everything from the kernel to the graphical apps, is this working? What are the problems? And why are most major distros slowly moving away from that current model? But I'm not moving away from this segue to our sponsor. This video is sponsored by Chasm Workspaces, the container streaming platform that lets you stream any OS, desktop or app to your web browser. And they've been working on implementing one of the most community requested features, translations. Now, it's a developer preview for now, and Chasm would like you to give it a shot and provide feedback on how well things work. They will automatically use the language and the time zone of your web browser in any OS, desktop, terminal, or app you're streaming. Or you can set the language and time zone manually from your profile if you prefer, or if you use a VPN, for example. You can download that developer preview for free right now using the link in the description below, and don't hesitate to let Chasm know what you think about it. They're really focused on implementing community requests right now, so give them a hand. So what's the Linux distro model exactly? Well, since DNF and apt were developed, it always has worked in kind of the same way. The distro grabs all the software that they want their users to have access to, and they package it themselves, from the kernel to the graphical apps. And then they host these packages onto online repos, where users can download them, and they use these packages to build the base that they'll ship to every single one of their users. So the distro packages the software, not the developer themselves. This means that the distro controls the specific version of the software or the app that they provide to their users, which has the benefits of generally providing a more stable experience because the distro only has to test for these specific versions. On the other hand, for users, it kinda sucks. Because generally, unless your distro is a rolling release, you're not getting any feature updates for your apps. You're not getting many updates at all, because the distro wants to pin these specific versions to make sure that things work well. So you only get critical security fixes, but very rarely do you get feature updates. So the distro has a decent amount of control over what you can use, but you, as the user, you don't. And the app developer also has no control over which version of their software their users are running. And this model is broken. Yeah, I said it. Now you can say that you're angry down there in the comments. On the surface, for users, it looks like it works. You get a relatively stable and well-tested system, and you get big online repos with a lot of applications that should cover every single one of your needs. And you might not care or want newer version of your apps or your libraries. Although why you would not want the latest stable version of an app, for example, is beyond me. Like, it's a stable version, you should want the new features. Still, anyway, this model is really broken when you peek behind the curtain. These repos contain thousands of orphaned packages which are not maintained and will never get any update ever again. There are plenty of old applications that can't be packaged or included in the repos at all because they depend on older versions of libraries that you would not be able to install on the distro because they would break your system or conflict with a newer version. You get the duplicated work of maintainers packaging the same app multiple times for multiple supported versions of the same distros. And let's not forget the enormous amount of storage and bandwidth that having all these duplicated repos between distros use for no effective benefit for most users. So behind the scenes, it's messy and it's really not efficient. And guess what? Distributions know it. That's why they're slowly moving away from this model, partially at least. And you know where I'm driving at, Flatpak, snaps, and app images. And it's okay to not like these formats right now, because they're not perfect. They don't fit 100% of use cases, but they are undeniably more efficient for distributions, and distributions are moving towards these formats. And it's not for nefarious reasons. It's not to spite their users or to force a specific technology for business purposes, or even to try and kill customization. It's just because packaging with these formats saves them a lot of time to do better things. When Ubuntu moves Firefox or Chromium from a deb to a snap, it's not to annoy you, it's not an anti-competitive move or whatever, it's because it's a good thing for them. It saves them a lot of time. Instead of having one or multiple people repackaging Firefox and Chromium for 4 different supported versions, 20.04, 22.04, 23.04, and 22.10, you're wasting a lot of time doing that. Every single small change in Firefox or Chromium, you have to rebuild the package, retest it against all the different versions of APIs, kernels, and libraries that these 4 versions of Ubuntu ship with. It's a mess, and to put it simply, it's a waste of time to spend so much time on repackaging the same app when you could have just packaged it once, and you would have given everyone the exact same experience as with the previous package. Except it's not exactly the same experience, is it? Because a snap package or a flatpak might have some edge use cases that don't work when they worked with the regular deb package. For example, the Firefox or Chromium snaps or flatpaks don't support native messaging, which means that some third-party password managers will not work with the snap package or with the flatpak. But this is just a software bug, a lack in the current implementation. It doesn't mean that these packaging formats will never support this. All it means is that maybe the transition to this packaging format was made too soon for this specific use case. Now, does that specific use case justify to keep working on the base package and wasting valuable volunteer or developer time? No, it doesn't. And it's the same thing when Red Hat drops the RPM package for LibreOffice in favor of the Flatpak, because not having to package this app will free valuable time so they can work on HDR, color management, and Wayland support, and maybe hopefully redistributing their sources publicly again. Who knows? One can dream. Now, personally, I would encourage them to even drop more packages in favor of Flatpak if it means that they have more time to work on important stuff that the Linux desktop needs or where we'll lag behind other operating systems. It's a matter of how you use your resources. If the app developer already does the packaging work for a Flatpak or a snap, why waste valuable volunteer time repackaging that app when this person could also do something else instead? And of course, it's not a one-to-one transition. Some people who are packaging now, if they stop packaging, wouldn't necessarily start working on low-level features, but a lot of them could. And I don't have a problem with distro maintainers and packagers. Like, we will always need those base packages for the kernel, the underlying libraries, the drivers, and a lot of stuff. I just think that for graphical apps, this is needless and thankless and wasted work. And there's also the benefit for the app developer, because if everybody moves to the one snap or one Flatpak package that the app developer creates and maintains themselves, it means that everyone uses the exact same version with the exact same libraries that are called by that application, which means that bug reports are way easier to triage and to reproduce and to fix, because you don't have to guess which distro ships what, who maintains the package, if it's a bug in the package or your own app. It's easier, which frees up time for actually making apps better instead of having to wait and elucidate where the problem comes from. And if you look at other operating systems, it becomes clear that this is the way to go for applications. On Windows, Microsoft doesn't package third-party apps to put them on their store. On macOS, app developers themselves publish to the Mac App Store. Same on iOS and Android. None of these companies would ever package the software from third-party developers because it makes no sense to waste resources doing that. The job of an operating system is to give you, the user, a base onto which you can run apps, and maybe a centralized way of distributing these applications. And for developers, it's to give them a platform on which they can develop apps. But those apps don't have to be packaged by the operating system. That's not its job. So why did Linux distributions start packaging applications instead of their developers? Well, it's not because it was more efficient or a better system, let me assure you. It's because there were so many different packaging formats and distros that no app developer could ever support every distro. So each developer picked the 1 or 2 or 3 distros that they actually could physically spend the time to support, and the rest of the distros did not have access to this app. So they started packaging these applications themselves, because if they didn't, they did not have some very popular apps. But nowadays, we do have those universal packaging formats that let app developers package once and distribute everywhere, which means that right now, packaging graphical apps for a specific distro is wasted time, because you already have that package that exists, so you're just duplicating work for no benefit whatsoever, apart from a few niche use cases. And yes, these packaging formats are not perfect. They lack certain features, they lack certain integrations with the desktop, they're not finished. But that's normal, they're still currently under heavy development, which means that they're not gonna be stuck at the version or the capabilities they have right now. They will improve over time. And these universal packaging formats also have advantages over the regular devs or RPMs, like for example way better security thanks to the sandbox, or not requiring root to be installed through the package manager. But let's be honest, the real advantages of these packaging formats are not specifically for the users. There are some advantages for the users, but the main advantages are for app developers and for distributions. These universal packaging formats finally bring Linux into the normal era of computing that everybody else does exactly in the same way, because you have one package distributed for the same OS. And sorry, but the argument that each distro is its own OS is bullcrap. The OS is GNU/Linux. The similarities between all distros are way more important in terms of what software they use than the differences between them. The only difference between major distros is the versions of the package they ship, the default apps, the desktop experience, and the packaging format, which should be completely irrelevant for graphical applications. So basically, we're now at a crossroads, where users and distros will pick between two paths. Do you want to support these new packaging formats that, yes, don't fit 100% of all use cases, but fix so many other problems and liberate so much work to actually improve the Linux desktop? Or do you prefer to keep the current Linux distro model and use packages and just have to deal with all that extra work, but 100% of all use cases work currently right now? I know what I personally want to choose, and it's not these old deb and RPM packages for graphical apps. And presumably, if you use a mainstream large distro like Ubuntu or Fedora, you will not get that choice. You will have, bit by bit, all your default apps replaced by FlatHub, and at some point, some big apps will no longer be packaged as debs or as RPMs. Snaps, Flatpaks, app images are just undeniably more efficient in terms of dev time, in terms of control for the app developer, and in terms of time invested by the distro. And the problems in their current implementations, which is the small cases that they don't currently support, they can be fixed. The structural problems with huge repos full of apps that no one maintains is not fixable. It's a structural time problem. But of course, if you do not like these new packaging formats, I'm pretty sure you will never be completely forced to use them. There will always be a Linux distribution that doesn't use either Flatpak, Snap, app images, or none of the three, and will stick to their own packages. Just know that at some point, sticking to these, when everyone else has moved on, will mean that you probably will never get a single one of your bugs fixed, because the developer will not waste time working on an unofficial, unsupported version of their application. But fortunately, this sponsor segue is 100% official. If you've ever bought a computer shipping with Windows out of the box and tried to retrofit Linux on it to notice that, yeah, it doesn't work properly in every single aspect, well, I've got a solution. Click the link in the description below and buy something from Tuxedo. They make laptops and desktops that ship with Linux pre-installed. All the components in their devices are picked specifically because they're compatible with Linux and will run super well under Linux. And they have a huge range of devices that will cover every need and every price point, whether you want a laptop, a desktop, something for work, for gaming, a workstation, they have it all. They're all super customizable, all the laptops are openable, repairable, and upgradable, and they ship to most countries in the world. So if you want a good Linux experience the next time you purchase a computer, click the link in the description instead, don't buy something that supports Windows. So, thanks everyone for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't hesitate to like, to subscribe, to turn on notifications, to write a comment, and if you didn't like it, well, you can always dislike it and tell me why in the comments as well. And if you really enjoyed the channel, there are plenty of links in the description below as well for PayPal, LibraPay, Patreon, YouTube thanks, YouTube memberships, you know the drill. So, thanks for watching, and I guess you'll see me in the next one. Bye!